Yeah, I was just gonna say that I know that your specialty is not employment law, but I just wanted to touch on just one little thing. So okay, so you're training your staff, of how to like do little jot down notes as they're taking data that does not interfere with their face to face session and interaction with the child, and then they have to write their session note after they've finished billing for this client session. Do you still have to pay them for the time, for the 7, 10, 15 minutes it takes them to write that note after they're no longer billing?
Yes, so I'm not an employment lawyer, but I am hard pressed to think of any state that would allow you to not pay someone while they're still working, right? Because they are still working. And I think, once the 9 codes and the supplemental guidance from the coding committee, came out on those codes, making it very clear that it was a non-billable service, for a lot of providers, that required sort of a little bit of a switch up in how they were, their billing model, their business model, because that's really more of a business issue, right? It's an issue of, okay, I can't bill for that time, but this person they're working. So, yes, they have to be paid. So maybe, and you want them to be efficient, right? You don't want someone who takes a half hour to write a note after every session. That's excessive. But you want them to be able to do their job well. And I think, there's been so much pushback I've seen sort of industry-wide. How am I going to get these people to write good notes? They can't write these notes. It's taking them too long to write the notes. That it takes so much to train them to write the notes. The notes still aren't good. We retrain. It's a process, right? No one wakes up knowing how to write a SOAP note. You aren't taught it in high school. You aren't taught it in college. You aren't taught it in your graduate program. But over time, you also become more adept at writing those notes, right? So the person who took 10 minutes to write a note initially, or 15, after a little while, they're doing it in 5 minutes. So it becomes less time too.
Right. I agree with that, especially if you're supporting your staff in the way that you should be supporting your staff. But that kind of brings us back to Stephen's question earlier about checklists. I think that's why checklists are so tempting, to like have like checklists within like programs completed or like.
Yeah, I know we had a recoupment audit at one point and they were like, yeah, I don't like these checklists, right? And now they didn't recoup any money from us, but their feedback was, we don't like checklists.
And it wasn't just a checklist. We also had a narrative as well. But it was like a place for us to like check what programs got completed. And, maybe a kid's got 15 programs, but it was only a 2-hour session that day versus a 6-hour session.
Like, were there any parent concerns? Yes or no, right? Just like general things that you would want to make sure that we cover during the session. They didn't like that. So.
I mean, I think it depends on, what the checklist is for, whether there's any narrative to go along with the checklist. It's not necessarily, I don't think, in my personal opinion, and I haven't gotten a lot of pushback on checklists from funders, but obviously you have, at least from this one funder. But I think you could say, were there any parent concerns? Yes or no. If you check no, it's no. But if you check yes, like you have a drop down for an explanation of what it was. Yes, mom reported, on Monday morning that Kim hadn't slept well all weekend, so, she may be off her game today because she's tired and irritable. Or, parents are getting divorced or grandma passed away. All kinds of things happen, right, that may impact what goes on during a session. And it's important for everyone to know that, right? Because if you see, like Monday session is a complete train wreck, right? I mean, the child is just tantruming and cannot focus and is not, will not attend to tasks. What the heck happened on Monday? If you don't have an opportunity to record that sort of subject, that information that says, yeah, she didn't sleep all weekend. So what a surprise that, when demands are placed on her, it's very challenging. And I think I've used checklists for things like what different types of ABA, and I may not be using the right terminology, and I apologize, but what types of ABA methodologies are you using, right? Are you using NET? Are you using DTT? Are you using the pre-Mack principle? What are you doing during a session, right? You can check off for, the 3 things you do. And I have my clients tailor those checklists usually to, not everyone uses everything, right? I could list 25 things, but you may use 5 of them in your practice as a general rule, right? You don't need a checklist of 25 things. And you have to make sure too that if you're using checklists, that your texts particularly understand the different things. So if you're recording client affect and you're going to say, they had, a flat affect, that they understand what a flat affect is so that they're accurately reporting that. I think with the programs the specific programs, it's much easier now with a lot of the EMR systems to just pull that information into the note through the system. And I think that a lot of funders do like that and they want to see it. A lot of the blues, for example, have very specific guidance that you have to have data points in your notes. So they're wanting to see that information pulled in.
Gotcha. And I know you said a note shouldn't take 30 minutes, and hopefully over time, your techs, even BCBAs, they'll get better and maybe it'll take 5 minutes. But is there just from, maybe you don't have, probably don't have data on this.
I haven't taken data on it.
But do you have this feels right, 6-7 minutes is probably what we should be shooting for here, or is it less than that, or
I mean, part of it depends on the length of a session, right? You're
Sure.
going to need to write a lot more if you were with a child all day or most of a day versus a 2-hour
Sure.
Yeah.
session, right? You can probably do a 2-hour session literally in a couple of minutes versus, let's explain what went on for 6 hours with this child.
Right, and I think that's going to differ. Just like she was saying, a newer staff member might take longer in the beginning, and then you want to see that time kind of at least come down a little bit and get to a nice, comfortable
Right.
place. And then, of course, I know with us, there were certain staffs that needed some special accommodations for writing their session notes. And so that was something that we had to take into consideration too.